Good evening, I'm Dike Rostant. Welcome back to the TTT News. The Caribbean Industrial Research Institute, or CARIRI, provides yeoman service to the national and regional landscape. But just what do they do? We discuss their history, how they help young enterprise, and various partnerships. It's time for In-Depth on CARIRI with Senior Business Development Officer at CARIRI, Laura Dabro. Welcome, Ms. Dabro. Thank you for joining us. How are you doing?
I'm all right. Thank you for having me.
Our supreme pleasure. We want to start off with an overview of CARIRI, please.
Yes, so CARIRI has been around for just over 50 years now. We've been primarily known for our testing services, water, air quality, calibration, and our biotechnology product development at our head office, right? Having dealt with different types of stakeholders and different types of clients, in the different areas, whether it's manufacturing, the food and beverage sector, or the oil and gas industry, we've recognized that it's not only about manufacturing, but it's also about the business of things. Hence the reason in the last 7 years or so, our flagship hub for innovation was developed called the Center for Enterprise Development, where we look at innovation, entrepreneurship, and ICT-related activities.
So it kind of boggles the mind to realize that you'll span such a wide range of, from food and beverage to oil and gas. Is it that you'll have different divisions? Is it that you'll have persons who have the capacity to test these things? How does that work?
Yes, so we definitely have different departments. We have 3 locations. Our main office is at the University of the West Indies. We have our Macoya branch, and then we have our Freeport branch, which is the Center for Enterprise Development. Our testing and so forth, that is located at our UE and Macoya branches. But our business arm, the business and innovation arm, is at the CED at Freeport.
Okay, and from 1970 to now, it seems as though you all supply services to beyond the borders of Trinidad and Tobago. Who are some of those people outside of our borders who would benefit from your services?
Yes, so we have clients, regionally of the islands, for different services like calibration. We are currently partnering with the Compete Caribbean to have a technology extension services project where we've been doing audits throughout the islands for persons in the manufacturing, the agro-processing, as well as the tourism sector.
And how does someone say, okay, well, I'm starting this, or I am involved in this business, and I think I need to have instruments calibrated, I need to look at the quality of some of these things. How do they find you to reach out to you to say, okay, well, I need your services?
All right. So we have a strong social media presence. We are constantly posting on, Facebook, Instagram, Twitter, LinkedIn. We also are on YouTube. We have our website, and we try to constantly keep up-to-date information on those platforms.
Now, one of the things that you spoke about would be supporting entrepreneurship. How does CARIRI go about doing that, Ms. Dabro?
Yes, so at the Center for Enterprise Development, we have different departments, different arms. We have our business incubator, and we have our innovation incubator. Our innovation incubator looks at, looking at persons who have ideas and taking those ideas to a point of commercialization. But our business incubator, on the other hand, we have different programs such as the Business Hatchery program. And in that program, we work with early stage startups to establish businesses, and we really help them to grow and manage that business better. It's a 3-month program, and we look at, really validating who is the right customer, and looking at market research, developing strategies based on the market research, marketing strategies based on the market research. We also look at, fine-tuning that business model. We know that the pandemic just happened, and a lot of persons would have had to change their business models. So we look at really working through that business model with them, as well as, a lot of companies may encounter cash flow problems. So we help them with financial management. What are the tools, the balance sheet, the cash flow statements, etc. As well as, I know that a lot of our entrepreneurs, they apply for grant funding. So we also work with them for business pitching. So how do you prepare a pitch? What are the elements, etc. So those are some of the things that we work with for the business hatchery program if, an entrepreneur comes and they need some help.
Now, I love the fact that you talk about being able to work from an idea, but at the same time, sometimes people say that, but they need a little more than that. But I love the fact that you're speaking about research leading to business development. But is there a minimum point that the person needs to have at least this much before they approach you?
Well, we try to be we try to develop an ecosystem where we can be a type of a one-stop shop, right? So for example, depending on the stage the person is at, we have different programs for that person. All right. So if it's an idea, the minimum would be at least come with an idea, start drafting it out. So it's not just in your head, you've already, started to prepare something. If you have a business, we would like to see that the businesses are operating. And when we're talking about finances, at least we have things to plug in. And if it's an established business, we also have a program for that called the Innovation Gap Analysis Program, where we work with larger companies. So we have worked with larger companies in the industry to identify either, where they have a monopoly or strong points and help them really further strengthen that, or identify some gaps they might have missed, right? So the minimum would be based on what is the requirement and what would be the solution that we would provide.
Ms. Dabro, you ever find yourself breaking hearts or sending people back to the drawing board, in the sense that the research shows this? While your idea might be nice, the research shows that there are a lot of people who have penetrated, or you may want to think about this a little differently. You spoke about people having been impacted by the effects of the pandemic. That information that you give people or advice, do you find people going back like that or having to?
Many times. And, sometimes they have to pivot, or sometimes they have to move on from their ideas. And that is often one of the most difficult things for an entrepreneur to do, or even an ideator or an inventor, right? Because, you've been probably investing so much time and resources into developing this, but then you recognize that it's not feasible to make, or there's no market for it. Right? So those are some of the things that we help you work through. But oftentimes, you have to go back to the drawing board. And we like to tell, our entrepreneurs, fail fast and fail cheap, but also maybe don't be too married to the idea, right? Because we have to be willing to pivot and to move on should that happen. Because if we rarely go back to the pandemic, a lot of persons struggled to change their business model, right? And to continue operating. So those are some of the things that we really need as an entrepreneur, to have an open mind, to be willing and able to pivot and be flexible should the need arise.
Fail fast and fail cheap, but be willing to move on. Woo! That's some advice for somebody, though. We continue the conversation when we return. Stay with us. We are speaking with Laura Dabro, Senior Business Development Officer at CARIRI. Welcome back. We are speaking with Senior Business Development Officer at CARIRI, Laura Dabro. Now, Laura, just before we move on to the Youth Innovation Lab in a little more detail, I saw something in terms of having in-house versus virtual tenants. What is that about?
Sorry, repeat that.
And I think this is at the business incubator. You have in-house as well as virtual tenants.
Yes, so we have spaces that are available that can be rented by our entrepreneurs for, if it's conferences, if it's meeting rooms and so on, that they can utilize. We also have desk spaces that are outfitted with phones, etc. We have ICT staff and kitchen staff that is available. Should there be in-house tenants that want to, run their business, basically utilizing that space, right? Because not everyone will have a physical location that they can operate out of. And in addition to that, we have, we have been running our programs virtually at our business hatchery, our youth innovation lab. A lot of the training has been virtual since the pandemic.
And that is something I really appreciate because there may be many times, long stretches, you don't need to have that physical meeting or engagement. But if you're renting the space consistently, you'd have to pay for lights, you'd have to pay for this, you'd have to pay for that, and upkeep of the building and so on. So to be able to have a spot that you can use like that when you need is something to be applauded. But taking it forward though, in addition to being able to have a spot that you can use when you want to, there's also something called contract processing that you would do. I heard one person speak about having things milled at CARIRI and someone else using, I think it was almost like a kitchen area. How does that work?
Yes. So you know that as a small business, many times you have to get different certifications to if you're processing food, right? We have different technology bays that are available with equipment that is commercial grade equipment. So we've had persons coming and make puncher creme. We've had persons making jams and jellies. We've had persons making cookies, persons making yogurt. So in the event that, you know, a small entrepreneur needs to do a large order, or they don't necessarily have the certifications to be able to process at their home, to be able to be ready for the grocery shelves, they have the facilities at the CED as well as our UE branch to do some of the contract processing.
And is that something that someone would need to keep a consistent sort of engagement with you in terms of like investing into what it is you're doing? And also, can you just do it like, I have a big batch that I have coming up. I don't have the space to do as much as I would like to, in terms of someone who may organize or process these at a different facility. Take me through that a little more.
Yeah, so it can be based on an as-needed basis. So for example, last year, and we are probably anticipate this year as well, someone reached out to us because she had a lot of hams to bake, right? So she would have come and she would have used our ovens. So she would have been able to process that large order, right? So it's on an as-needed basis. We have staff that works along with the entrepreneur and their team. So we are not necessarily doing the processing for you, but we are there to guide you, help you in terms of utilization or using the machine and the equipment and so on. So we have staff there. We've actually had someone who uses the grates of a coconut. She was grating 500 coconuts by hand, and now she has used our equipment. So it would be her team in collaboration with our staff to grate that coconut to make her coconut oil and her other coconut products.
And while we are here, and some people like myself are being wowed and saying, looking at the possibilities, I should say that on Instagram and Twitter, your call sign is CARIRI, that's CARIRI_TT, and we can get you both on Twitter and IG, and you're also on Facebook as well.
Facebook and LinkedIn, yes.
Partnerships. What are some of those partnerships that you work with? Because looking at the fact that you have different people coming in, doing different things, you may be privy to some methodologies. So in terms of intellectual property, how do you treat with that?
Yes, so we host an IP clinic the first Thursday of every month that is in collaboration with the Intellectual Property Office of Trinidad and Tobago. It's virtual since the pandemic and it has been successful. So for all of the participants, they've lamented that this is such a great idea to do it virtually, and it opens up the access to the IP office, through CARIRI, right? It's a one-on-one session. You book an appointment and you have that one-on-one consultation with an officer that we would facilitate. In addition to that, we have coming up an IP workshop for the food and beverage sector that if you look at the social media, you'll get more information. But that is on November the 18th and 19th. And, that is in collaboration with the World Intellectual Property Office as well.
And have you found during the pandemic more people coming to you, basically there being a kind of aggressive push out of the nest, having to pivot, having to find something else to do? What has that been like?
Almost definitely. I think that this pandemic has definitely accelerated innovation and entrepreneurship. We have seen a surge in entrepreneurs, especially young entrepreneurs, and we'll talk about that when we speak about our Youth Innovation Lab. But there has definitely been a thrust in terms of new entrepreneurs and new businesses that have been growing, and they are seeing the value in the training that we offer. So we have more persons coming to us, how do I protect my idea? How do I protect my trademark? How do I manage my business better? I need some financial management help. How do I, write a proposal? We've helped persons write proposals and so forth, provided them with training, because we also have, in addition to our business factory, further business development support. And if you would permit me, when we're talking about collaborations as well, in addition to the IP office, at the end of our business hatchery program, we usually have our participants pitch. And at that pitch, we have persons like Export TT, the Supermarkets Association of Trinidad and Tobago, as well as JMMB, because at the end, we want them to, what are you going to do next after the business hatchery, after you've gained all these tools? Are you ready for exports? Are you ready for the supermarkets? Do you need some type of financing? So those are some other collaborations that we have been utilizing for our programs.
And that is a beautiful thing, because it's one thing to say, okay, well, this is the advice, this is the information, this is what you need to do. But actually having players in the field who can look or listen to your pitch and then give you tips after, break it down and say, okay, well, this is something you may want to look at. This is something you should be aware of. So basically holding hand and guiding forward in a real and tangible way, allowing persons that space to fail, to get better at even the pitch. But with the last minute and a half we have, we want to talk about the Youth Innovation Lab, and the floor is yours.
Yes, so the DIA Youth Innovation Lab is an initiative in collaboration with the Trust for the Americas, that's an affiliate of the OAS, and the City Foundation. And in that program, we have completed 4 cohorts. We've been working with persons, young people in vulnerable situations between the ages of 16 to 30. And we've been really training them and providing them with the tools for business to start their own business that can help solve problems within the community, right? So we look at business as well as ICT training for them. And then we also have a physical lab that they can come and utilize to test out different things, like robotics, Arduino kits, laser cutters, and so forth.
And lastly, is there a group or theme or an area, specialty that you see some of these youth more or less gearing towards, be it in the DIA Youth Innovation Lab or as young entrepreneurs?
It was definitely a variety, but I've seen that after the program, a lot of them, they have really clinged towards the ICT, but we have a lot of writers in the group, a lot of illustrators, a lot of creatives, right? And then, obviously the food industry is a popular one as well, but those are the 3 most popular areas that I would have seen arising from these young people to solve problems in their community.
All right, thank you so much, Laura Darborough, Senior Business Development Officer at the Caribbean Industrial Research Institute. And on behalf of the entire TTT News team, we want to thank you for tuning in. Thank you for joining us.